Hey, welcome everyone. Welcome to Authentic Influence Live. And we were back into the live. It's been a while since we did the last interview. I guess I've been hiding somewhere in a cave because of the pandemic. And now it's time to reconnect. And actually in Sydney, it's been, I don't know what it's like being over there in New Zealand, Daniel, but for over here, it's been a 100-day lockdown in Sydney. And then we've just come out of it 2 weeks ago. So I'm feeling more like a human being now.
Auckland is on like day 80, I think.
All right.
Because they're struggling to control cases there. But the rest of the country has been open for the last 60 or so. Before that, we had music festivals and everything, you know?
Oh, wow.
It was bizarre. Last summer was just as normal. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we've been lucky.
Well, there you go. I should have been over there. Okay, so today's topic, we're going to jump into content clusters and how do you use content clusters to grow your traffic. I'm sure we'll touch on in CRO and some other bits and pieces around direct response and all these sort of things. So to introduce my guest, I have Danes-Hutt, who is the content master at Convertcom. And really his goal is to take complex CRO topics. So for those of you who don't get CRO, it's conversion rate optimization. Take those topics and break them down so you not only understand them, but you can take action on them and use it to lift your business. He's had articles in the top 10 of all time. I really love this on inbound, which is if you're in the B2B space, you definitely know all about inbound, and top articles for a number of years now on Growthhackers. So when he's not writing for Convert, he's also teaching people how to write more effective content and leveraging it, via detailed distribution methods at ampmycontent.com. So that's ampmycontent.com. And we'll share all the links in the show notes so you won't miss out on those. And he's also an author. So content marketing for traffic and sales. Highly optimized title already. I think he's going to grab a copy of the book. There it is.
So this is the very first one they printed, and they printed the wrong file size. So it weighs 2.8 pounds, but wow. The print spacing is like 18 point for a blog post. So yeah, I have this hilarious blooper version, but yeah.
I love that. You could use it as a joke and send it to a client and be like, here you go.
It looks so authoritative because it's this massive book. And I'm like, it could be a third of the size, basically. Like it's about 30,000 words. It's a big book, but it doesn't need to be.
That's pretty epic, man. Big. All right. Well, let's jump into just your involvement with content, how you got into, I guess, just writing content and learning all about traffic. When did that begin for you?
So I'm an Englishman living in New Zealand. I'm a permanent resident now. Fell in love with the place immediately, but I was quite old when I came over here. And so like struggling to get working holiday visas and stuff like that. So I was looking for loopholes and I set up a clothing company because if you were an entrepreneur at the time, you could apply for like a different visa if your business earned X amount of cash. Set that up. That did ridiculously well. I was in a bunch of retail stores. I sold thousands of units of like just a single design and stuff. People started asking me how I was doing that. So then I started doing consulting for e-commerce and stuff. Was doing paid ads because I was doing SEO for these companies, but they weren't really paying off because even though I was getting traffic to their sites, they didn't have many assets on there. Like these small businesses who don't have a case study or a sales page or anything like that. So it's like having a retail store with no staff, kind of thing. Or and so I started looking at paid traffic for them because ironically it was cheaper and we could kind of do offers in the ads. I did one for free for a company called Body Glove. And then I wrote a case study about that because I did a lot of paid ads in psychology and stuff. And then that case study went insane. Got $3 million in client requests in 2 weeks, about 50,000 views. It's the one that's like in the top 10. And then from that, people kept asking me how I write. And that's how I got into writing and teaching people writing because it was all my systems and stuff that I used to train staff. So yeah, it's been this crazy journey. Like entrepreneurship is never a straight line, right?
And all because you're trying to get a visa.
Yeah, basically.
And did you end up getting the visa?
Yes, I am now a permanent resident, and this year I can apply for citizenship.
Oh, fantastic! That's a brilliant case study in itself.
Right?
Ways you use entrepreneurship to hit your life goals.
It was actually written up as a case study for a company that helps people get into the country and get visas and stuff. It was written as a case study, as like a success story.
There you go.
Not that they did anything to do with it, but it was an interview. So,
oh man, that's crazy. All right, we'll come back to the actual the mechanics of the case study and the campaign, because I know listeners are going to go, "Well, how did you do that, Daniel?" All right, so we'll come back to that. But let's talk about just you're representing Convert as part of this conversation. Can you tell us a bit about the company? What I guess how long you've been there, and what's your key function and responsibility as the content master?
So Convertcom or Convert Experiences is an A/B CRO testing tool. So if you want to test 2 versions of a thing, like Groundhog Day, to find out which version works better, that's what the tool does. And I've been reading their site for about 9 years, since I started working for myself to get the visa. And I've been working for them now since February of last year, about 10 months or so, something like that. My role is basically just taking complex article topics and writing them so they rank, for one thing, but also so that they provide the answer and value and quality and things like that, so that the audience can read them, be empowered and want to take action and stuff like that. So writing blog posts, basically. I do apologize. I've cut out coffee like the last 3 days, so my focus might go off a little bit, or it might go on tangents. Yeah, all right. I think I answered the question fully.
Yeah, you did. You did. Yep,
okay.
Yep. That makes all sense. It's so important. So this is conversations that I'm having, and I'm sure you've had many times with different people. It's one thing to generate traffic, and then there's another to actually convert that traffic. And someone who can, and it's they're different skill sets. And so if you're assuming that someone can do something, get onto TikTok and go viral and bring you a ton of traffic, that doesn't guarantee it's going to bring you sales.
I actually looked at TikTok recently as a so I work at Convert. Everyone who works there is a freelancer. Super cool company. Do a lot for the environment, really care about people, things like that. That's why most people work there. Anyway, I was looking at TikTok because I also run a blog that talks about distribution and things. And I saw someone on there who talks about content marketing, and they were getting about 100,000 views per video. And I was like, okay, well, this is pretty insane. There's no competition, things like that. But when I checked the traffic and the product they were selling, they got 4 visitors that month from TikTok. So like 500,000 views on TikTok that 1 month, 4 clicks kind of thing. So like it really does matter about the assets that you have on your site and how they connect with how you're bringing people in and things like that. You can't just do absolutely anything. I had one person apply for a program where I teach writers and stuff, and they were getting something like 2 million visitors a month, and they were converting less than 0.5%, something like that, just because they focused on the traffic that they could get and they don't have the particular assets to do the job.
Right. Yeah. That's fascinating. And whilst we're on just a bit of a sidebar here, what's your take on TikTok for B2B or for SaaS? Is
honestly,
it worth the investment?
I haven't looked into it too much. So I used to be, when I started out as an entrepreneur, I was super interested in so many different channels and things like that. And so nowadays I have set goals and focus, and I just ignore everything else. So I kind of looked at TikTok for Marvel videos because I'm a bit of a Marvel nerd, things like that. And I checked out this person because a friend of mine is doing really well. She does, what's it called? Kind of like palm reading and things like that. And her videos do really well and drive traffic to her. So particular audiences might do really well on there, and particular business types, things like that. I imagine e-commerce could do incredibly well on there because, it's, you get put in front of the right audience, the right demographic with a call to action. There's not much friction to buying. If they see an outfit that someone's wearing and they want to get it, they'll click through and buy. But I have to imagine in B2B and stuff like that, it might take a longer cycle and you might not get the clicks. for now, myself, I'm just focusing on YouTube, like yourself, and blog content and paid traffic. So paid distribution of content. Those are the only things that I really focus on. But
yeah, I'm with you on that, and I agree with ecom as well being a good it's a good testing ground. I've got a friend who actually runs what does she sell? She sells strollers for mums, and so she does these fun things with, maybe I think her kids are in them, some of those videos, and they've gone viral, and that's actually bringing leads for her ecom biz. But like you say, probably not the place. I know there are a lot of brands trying to test it out right now.
The only people I see doing well are the influencers on there who are getting paid by marketing companies like 20 grand to do a mention or something like that. And I'm sure, because it's Instagram, basically. It's video Instagram, TikTok kind of thing, but it's got a huge audience base of the younger generation. So that's why, like, if it was fidget spinners, if it was a couple of years ago, I bet you could spend like hundreds of thousands of dollars and recoup that on there. But it's definitely worth testing. Like, when any new channel comes out and it's got adoption like that and it's your audience, it's worth testing. But I haven't played around with it myself, really.
Yeah. Fair enough. All right. Well, let's talk about what you do really well. So in your we asked you a few questions when you sort of submitted your information to us. One of those sort of things that stand out to me is this concept of branding and knowing your people, and how that's important to the success of Convert, and also just to the work that you do. Can you sort of let's dive into that, and let's talk about brand, because I think that can be a very nebulous concept for a lot of people and a lot of businesses. So what's your sort of definition of that and understanding of what is brand, and how does it relate to audience?
So this is my personal opinion, and Convert themselves might be slightly different, or my boss might have a slightly different idea on it. I think we're on the same wavelength. But for me, all sales, all marketing really is audience research, understanding, and then connecting with that audience so that you can not only have messages that connect, but products and things that connect as well. So brand is just trying to align with that and create a company that fits your audience. So at Convert, we started implementing GDPR and privacy and things like that into our testing tool way before it was even something that people were talking about, because for us, we really care about people, the environment, user privacy, things like that. Now, we're a testing tool, so it doesn't really align with anything that much. At least you know that your data is safe with us and your audience's data is safe with us. But the really cool thing is we're attracting companies who also have that same belief, and we're attracting customers who have that same belief. So I think really that is the intersect of branding. It is this genuine, authentic goal that connects ideally with your audience and what you produce in some way. If that makes sense without waffling too much about it.
No, it does make sense. You also say that if you're missing one of the two, if you're missing knowing what your brand is, and also, or either you're missing knowing who your people are, then you're going to have issues. So a common question I get is how can you better understand who your people are? Like what are you doing with, whether it's in CRO or whether it's in research? How do you sort of take us to the beginning of a campaign, perhaps before you even write the content? What are you doing to kind of establish this is what I should be writing about and how I should be writing about it?
So when I write for my own blog, I probably go into more detail than I need to. When I'm writing for Convert, I'm researching the topic as thoroughly as I can. I'm looking at what everyone else has got on the topic. I'm looking at books on the topic. Like, I buy 5 or 6 books on Kindle every month to read on certain topics and things to fully understand and comprehend. Because you can't write something in a simplified way unless you really understand it at a higher level, almost. You kind of, you have to be able to fully grasp all the details before you can break it down in a way that your audience needs. when I'm doing that for AMP, when I'm writing a blog post for AMP, I will normally do customer research and ask my email list. Hey, I'm talking about this topic. What do you want me to cover? What is important to you? Can I get on a call with you? Especially if it's like a really detailed post that I'm going to write. The reason being, if I can connect and make sure that I'm not missing anything, it's going to make the article really good. But if I can also understand the pain points and the language that's causing people to be interested in this, that's really going to resonate as well. Because I can use in copywriting, we call it mirror language. So if someone can explain a problem to you using the words that you use to explain the problem, you feel like they're in your head and it's the perfect thing for you. And sometimes you'll see products that are ideal for you, but you don't connect with them, so you don't go with that. So I take a full-on kind of direct response copywriting approach to content writing. So I treat it almost like a sales page. I'm actually doing tests and stuff on it. For some articles, we'll even do QA tests. So like I'm looking after the fact once it's gone live to make sure people are going all the way through it. Where are they bouncing off? How can I keep them entertained? All different things like that. Are buttons not being pressed? Stuff like that. So understanding the audience as much as possible at each point. I apologize. My cat came to the window and just started waving at me. I was like,
love it. Yeah, cats. So when you talk about understanding audience from a CRO perspective, where would you recommend someone start with? I know this is what Convert does and helps businesses with. So if we're wanting to understand how an audience navigates, our content, let's assume someone watching this is thinking, okay, how do I do that? If I don't have heat mapping tools in place, if I don't have whatever it is, what would you say would be sort of the first couple of steps to get that in place?
Yep. So I have blog posts on this and stuff that I can share as well afterwards, where we actually go through like different processes and things. But really, like if you're running any test, any A/B test, you want to find out what's working and what isn't working first, so that you can have a hypothesis of what you think is causing the problem and how to fix it. A lot of the time, you'll be surprised how the reason things are not converting is because buttons and things don't work, and on different devices and stuff like that. So in CRO, we have two types of testing. We have quantitative, which is measuring the data, the numbers of actions that have been taken, which is what Convert is. It's a quantitative tool. We're able to measure the response when people do different things. Then you also have qualitative, which is like Hotjar and things like that, where you can install the code and you can see where your audience's mouse is going and things like that, and what they're pressing on, and when they leave, and you can give surveys and things. So ideally you need those two tools if you're going to run a test, because one of them is going to help you implement and make changes. The other one is going to help you try and find insights, beforehand. So I install those tools. I check that everything works. So you can also, the name escapes me now, but basically you can load your page in different devices and make sure, is it working on an iPhone 5? Because if you look at your traffic and 25% of them are coming through on an iPhone 5, but your buttons don't work, like they're off the screen or something like that, and they can't click, that's 25% of your traffic who can't do the job. So things like that, figure out what's broken first. And if it isn't something that's a technical issue, it could be that people are not scrolling as far to see your button. It could be that people, I actually have a page that I just recently improved, and this is the exact same thing. People weren't scrolling as far to see a call to action, and it was in a blog post promoting a course on how to get on podcasts as a guest, kind of thing. It's a great way to get traffic, fans, things like that. Mm-hmm. People weren't getting as far as the button, and when they were, it was kind of blended in with the colors of my brand, and it wasn't clear that it was a clickable button. Now, I wrote an entire article on this, on like images and buttons and how it can actually affect people's perception of how they see them and things. So that's why back in the day, you would just have like this flat 2D image. And then for a part in the 90s, they turned into these 3D graphic things that kind of flashed, you know, and now they're kind of a bit more subtle and they have shading and things. So they give perspective. So it looks like something can be clicked. And if you mouse over it, it moves as well, as so you can see there's an action to be taken. All things like that, which is just real small stuff that you can do to analyze and test, okay, is actually this the issue? Then you can also start to look in, is it the language? I reviewed my audience and I got on Skype calls with them. I'm really sorry, my cat keeps scratching to come in. He's not going to leave either. I got on calls with them and I was just talking to them. And the goal of this product is, I used it as a link building technique. So I took a blog from DA0 to DA50 in 3 months. And which is huge. Like some companies, some websites don't do that in 5 years, you know?
Wow. Yeah.
And the reason being is that I promoted a blog post on podcasts. Podcasts are usually on powerful websites. Sometimes you can't get a guest post on there, but you could be a guest on the podcast much easier. Lower barrier to entry, things like that. Higher value, you get people coming across. I got client requests from a competitor to WordPress, like a big page building company and stuff like that. But the thing is, the way it was worded, the goal is how to get on as a podcast guest. But they thought it was, I'm a podcaster, I have my own podcast, how do I get guests for my show? Kind of thing. So once I clarified that and found out the terminology they used and things like this, I went from, I think it was like a 2% click-through rate to something like 60%, around about. Yeah, just because it was more visible, it connected with the audience, more people were seeing it, I brought it further up the page, things like this. All you're really doing, everyone assumes that CRO, because of the name, is about conversion optimization. It's about understanding the user and their experience and what they want. It's that more than anything else, and then conversions come from that, you know, because you're providing the thing and you're removing the thing that's stopping them.
Yeah, that kind of goes to a project I'm working on at the moment, where it's a website redesign, and we're having some contention around what do you name the menu items at the top, right?
Yeah.
What's your sort of, where would you take that conversation? Is there people are expecting certain things like an about page? You know, do you call it testimonials? Do you call it praise? What sort of, I guess, how would you approach that conversation with a client?
For menus and things like that, there's certain pages that customers will always go to. They'll go to your home page, your about page, because again, your brand, they kind of want to see who you are to work with you. Ironically enough, it's like usually the second highest traffic page out of like these generic pages that we would have, product pages and things like that. For some sites, unless you're doing a heap of traffic, you're not going to notice the difference too much in the names of like menu items or the CTA on buttons and things like that, usually, unless like you've got a terrible thing and it's not clear what's happening. For small tweaks like that, you're going to see the biggest difference when you're getting like 100,000 visitors a month and so on. So I wouldn't worry about it too much. I would just test it with your audience and maybe do screenshots of each and just ask people, you know, it's not going to be a fully scientific test because you're not getting 10,000 people like responding to it and things, but you can get like an early gut reaction of what's going on from there. And then you can always, you know, tweak it afterwards and things. But I would go with common terminology at first because people expect certain things. In content writing, in films and TV, there's only 7 archetypes. So in all films, all books, all stories, they all follow one of 7 archetypes, like the same plot beats every time, different characters and things like that. Some people think it's because it's the ideal way to communicate with people. Other people think it's just because we've always had stories like that in the past. So now when stories don't fit that, they feel off. So like when films, sometimes the pacing and things feel off or weird because we've missed like these different parts of the hero's journey or whatever. I have to assume that kind of thing relates to UI design and things like that to some extent. you know, especially if they're looking for something specific and they can't find it and they've got to click 3 different things to find it, you might lose them before that 3rd click, you know? So I would go with, personally, but there's another thing in CRO, your opinion doesn't matter, the data matters. So I would go with something simple at first, and then I would test it, because all assumptions can be totally off. With paid ads, it's exactly the same. I've had an ad that converts way better with an image that was uploaded by accident. image about this blog post, image of me going for a hike converted the highest. And I literally was going away surfing somewhere for the weekend, saw that it was live, and I was just like, you know what? I'm just going to leave it. When I came back, it was like 14% click-through rate, and the rest were 2%.
Oh my god!
And I was just like, oh, okay. So it's they call it HIPPO, highest paid person's opinion. You can't just take people's opinion. You do have to have data. But if you're early on, you don't have a huge amount of traffic to test and things like that, it's not a bad idea to take inspiration from sites that you know are already successful, you know? Same for copy, same for sales pages, things like that, and then test as you get better on the assumption that it's working for them, it should hopefully work for you. That being said, not everyone knows what they're doing, so some of these successful sites are performing really badly, even though they're huge companies, because they've never tested and stuff. But use it as the initial inspiration and then build from there.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like I've seen large brands, like we're talking multinational, and you're looking at their site and you're going like, who the hell designed, like who approved that? You know, but it's
Do you play computer games at all?
Yeah, I do.
Have you ever played Final Fantasy online?
Oh, well, not online, but on the console, yeah.
So they do like a PC version. I think it's console connected now. If you go on that website, it is the worst designed 1992 website I've ever seen. And when someone sent it to me to play the game, I thought my bank account details were going to get hacked because it is awful. I'm going to try and find it for you.
That's hilarious.
I can screen share and stuff on here, right?
Yeah, I should be able to. Just
Oh, they've actually updated it since then.
Oh, well.
Okay. But yeah, I logged onto it and it looked like something from 1991, and there was like flashing stuff in the corner, and there was images that were half on the screen and half off, and all this other stuff. And I was like, this looks like a super dodgy page. Like if I had clicked on this and it wasn't from someone I knew that sent it me, and I was talking to them at the time, you know, I'd be like, otherwise I'd have messaged them and say, hey, has your Facebook been hacked, or has your like email been hacked? You've sent me this really weird link, you know?
It's a GeoCities page.
Basically, yeah, it looked like an old Tumblr page, something like that. Oh, yeah.
Classic. All right, well, let's move over to content clusters and tell us a bit about what they are and how do you use them, and why do you why do you recommend people look at building them?
So this is it's for two things really. It's for an SEO benefit. It's also for an audience benefit. So the idea of a content cluster, you can almost think of it. Originally, it was called like spoke and wheel. You know, like the wheel of a bike, and you have the inner side, and then you have the spokes coming off it and things. Same for a cluster. So you might have an article that you want to rank for that's maybe kind of a medium or a high keyword topic, and you want to build a lot of backlinks for it, things like that. You write this article and you create it as this pillar piece of content. But then because you can't cover absolutely everything on the topic, you create these offshoot articles that link back and reference this main piece. So if we had an article about SEO and link building, I might then have different articles that go into in-depth, like case studies maybe, or how-to guides about different link building techniques. And these cluster articles usually can get a lot of backlinks, and that feeds back into your main article, which helps it to rank. And so it actually gets more traffic. that gets links. It then helps the cluster articles as well. So it's kind of like creating a mini library around a topic that all ties in together. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. I wonder if is there an example that you can pull up maybe on the screen or something where we can look at how that's been done?
People like Backlinko do this all the time. So Brian Dean.
Yeah.
It's hard to find an example of one immediately. Okay, I can think of one for Convert. So obviously A/B testing is a big keyword for us. And I can screen share, correct?
Yeah, there should be a screen share button on the bottom.
Works best with 2 monitors. When am I rich? I just get distracted. All right, so you can see both of our lovely faces here. So this is an article for us that is a definitive pillar post guide on A/B testing. We're constantly updating it and things like that. If you look on the side here, this is a huge article that covers all different things about A/B testing. You know, what it is, what are the different types, what is AA testing? An AA test is basically where you're testing the software to make sure there's no discrepancies in results. Because if you're testing 2 identical versions of a page and the results are different, that means your tool's not working correctly. So all different things like that we have in this article, in this massive, massive, massive guide. But because it's such a good resource on the topic, we will often link back to this again and again and again from different other articles, which then helps it to rank, which then helps it to get more traffic. So it's what we've been doing for this. It's what we do for other articles as well. The idea being that we can then help our audience with this. But let's say that I wrote an article recently about image optimization, about testing, A/B testing different types of images and buttons and things, like I said before.
Right.
If you found that, if for some random reason you found this case study and that was the first time that you found us and you were like, oh, wow, this person got like a 70% difference by changing these buttons and things like that, but you've never done any A/B testing before, the topic might be a bit high level for you, or you want to learn more about it. So actually linking back to this, I guess you would say like this central core article actually makes sense, because then they can come back and actually read more about it and go, oh, okay, I can understand this stuff now. You know, it makes total sense, and I can understand now about this image optimization and why they do that, and so on and so on. But off the top of my head, I can't think of any articles that definitely link to this. Like, I just wrote this one last week about landing page A/B testing and things like that. And I'm pretty sure that this article would probably link to that one as well. I would just have to find where it actually does it. But we call that internal linking, basically. So you can help your audience by sending them to a resource that supports what you're talking about. It also helps it to rank. So if you've got one page that's got a bunch of links and this new article has nothing, by linking to it, it helps this one rise up, you know, and get more search as well. So not many sites do it that well, and it's crazy because it helps you so much. Like, you can have this article that's been ranking for ages, link to your new version or new topic or whatever, and it just ranks almost straight away.
So if you were to start, say you were going to do that, A/B testing guide, or what became this mammoth, 20,000 words, whatever it is, would you start with, so A/B testing is going to be the keyword we're going to go after, and then look at sub keywords to do the smaller articles? Is that the way you would approach it, or would you be more organic around these are just questions that are coming up from our customers or research?
Both, yeah.
How would you attack that?
Kind of all three, yeah, of what you said. So I would have keyword ideas that come up all the time, questions that come up all the time from the audience, and also research that comes up all the time, like certain terminology. So keyword research is great, but keyword research is a secondary effect. Keyword research is basically as finding out how many people per month enter a specific term to search for an answer on a topic or to find something. In some industries, you will have particular things that people don't search for because they don't even know it exists. They don't know their problem, or it's something that's brand new as well. So you don't always do keyword research for a topic because, like, we wrote an article about privacy and GDPR in A/B testing. That's not something that was a keyword at the time, but is now as people are starting to trend into it. So you need to have like your own business insights and things of that. You also need to do the research of what your audience, of what people are searching for. And you also need to speak and listen to your audience of what they're saying and what they're asking, comments in blogs, on Quora, things like that. Look at the questions that people are asking in Twitter feeds and stuff. That'll give you a good idea. Now, as for what order to create the content in, really depends where your business is and what your goal is right away. Like if you want to start scaling up a lot of traffic, I would create the core post first, especially if you're kind of new in your industry, because it'll give you a lot of authority. You could write about, so AMP, even though we are quite a high DA site, there's no way I could rank for the term content marketing right now. It's not really something I do. It's something I could go after later on. Instead, I start ranking for terms that are very core to what I do as a business, and they might take a long time for me to see traffic from. But by me talking about them, I'm seen as an authority in my space on that topic. If I didn't have that, people might not see me as big an authority as the people who do, So even though that piece of content doesn't do anything for me as yet, I could start there. But that being said, okay, let me backtrack a sec. I would start there and then I would create cluster posts around different topics. I would fill in case studies. I would write unique data-backed guides that have a lot of statistics and things like that, and really cover like the gamut of this particular topic. The thing is, if I wanted sales right away, I would probably write a case study first, because a case study converts people so well, especially if you're a service business or if you're a product-based business and things like that, because it's, when done correctly, a case study is a transformation from A to B. Someone is in this point right now and they're looking for that final push or support to help them make that choice and decision. So although I probably wouldn't get a lot of organic traffic for a keyword around a case study, at the same time, it will make sales. So AMP, I have been working on our course and our product for absolutely ages, so I haven't looked at our traffic organically. I get about 50 visitors a week, something like that, to that blog. The thing is, because of the assets I have on it, average opt-in rate is between 17 and 83% on blog posts, and then 42% interaction with emails, something like 18% of people who get to the sales page become a customer. So even though I have very little traffic, every asset on that blog right now is designed to interact, enhance, and make a sale without it being sleazy or anything like that. Because that's where I started out first, because we're bootstrapping on that company. Afterwards, now I can create like a cluster post and link back to it from all these different articles, but if I was venture backed or whatever else, and I wanted to just start making traffic and authority in the space, I would go for that big term first and then create these. Another idea. So I said before, if you've got an article or a page that gets a lot of links and you link to something else, it helps it rank. You can create data-backed guides, which are basically huge guides that your audience probably doesn't care about. But the thing is, your audience doesn't have a website to link to you. So writing content for your audience all the time is not going to help you rank in Google. Instead, you need to write content that appeals to people who do link. So data-backed guides, statistics, state of the industry, things like that, they get a lot of backlinks. They might only get 30 visitors a month. But the thing is, some of them can get thousands of links, and they link to these other articles that your audience cares about, and suddenly they rank really well. So there's different assets that you need content-wise that are going to help you do the job. And a lot of companies don't understand this. They have content just for traffic, or they have content just for links that appeals to the people who link, but not their audience. Or, vice versa. They have these assets where they can get all this traffic in, but not do anything with them, which is just mad. It's like being in a massive retail store maybe and having like a 15-year-old trainee who doesn't even know the products or whatever, So it's about balancing out the different things that you need.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up the point of creating content not just for your buyer or your audience, like your specific buyer, because there's that there is a difference between people who will read and share content versus people who will actually, I'm reading because I'm trying to understand whether or not I'm going to buy your service. And so sort of bringing that into the mix is quite important. Now, you mentioned assets, right? You talked about case studies being an asset. You talked about sort of data-backed guides. Are there any other kind of assets that you utilize as part of the funnel?
Obviously, sales pages and things like that. I also create something that's called a pre-frame sequence. So in sales, you have 3 types of different salespeople. You have people who don't even make an offer, which is those businesses that I was trying to help out with SEO at the start. Then you have people who make an offer. Then you have people who make an offer. The person says no when they try and find out the objections and change their mind. Then you have the most advanced types of salespeople who find out the objections in advance, bring them all up before they even make an offer, and then they convert even higher. The reason being is when you pre-frame all this stuff and you help them get past all these problems, not only do you remove all the objections once in advance, but you also get them ready to buy. So it's like making an offer straight away to someone and then trying to convince them all these things is really difficult. But if they believe these different ideas, then they start looking for a product that meets that, and you offer it, it absolutely does. So, for example, with AMP, my site is all about content distribution. The idea being that you can leverage content more effectively. At one point, before Facebook went crazy, I was making $22 for every dollar spent by promoting blog posts to a cold audience. Because a cold audience would read, they would go through pre-frame content, and after about 2 weeks, they would become a customer. I wasn't trying to convince them right away because the thing that I sell is possibly something they don't even realize they need at the time.
Yeah.
So after researching and speaking to my audience, the pre-frame is usually the first 30% of a sales page. It is helping them to understand what the problem is now, helping them to see a solution, getting past new objections, getting them ready for that thing. So with AMP, if I'm trying to get you to see the value in a program that teaches you how to distribute content, one, you have to understand that high volume of content all the time with no visitors and no traffic is not going to do the job. 2, once you realize that, it's kind of peace of mind because you can take 5 minutes, and not feel flustered to try and knock something out every week just so that you've been publishing. But you realize it only works if the content converts. So you need to get better at writing. So I start to teach them that. I start to teach them basic how-to posts. Then, because it's getting better at writing and it's attracting people and it's resonating, they need to know how to make some kind of conversion. So I teach them how to lead capture as well. So now they understand that they don't have to be writing all the time, but they do have to be writing something good. And it's not that difficult if you take the time and do the research and archetypes and stuff. Then you can capture, and then from there, you can start to automate sales and scale up, and you can run paid ads to traffic because it converts at X percentage and things like that. That pre-frame sequence gets them ready for the offer without me having to do anything. It's all fully automated, and it's not upsells and downsells and things like that straight away. Instead, it's a sequence of conversations that I've had with my audience in the past that I'm letting my content do for me instead, So pre-frame content, case studies, how-to guides, a data-back guide, or basically like a really linkable asset, something that can get a lot of backlinks, possibly doesn't get a lot of traffic. That way you have sales covered, you have authority, you can actually get further sales with case studies as well, because now you've got social proof. You've got content that brings in organic traffic that then filters into these pre-frame sales sequences, you've got content that gets a lot of backlinks. So assets like that, I cover all of this in this massive book, basically. Get it on Kindle if you get it, because it's like $2.99 on Kindle. It's like $25 because they still print it out at this massive size. But yeah, those are the assets I recommend people have. And for my students, I always tell them to create a pre-frame sequence first. If they've got a sales page and a product that's already selling, get more sales. Because if I teach you how to get 10,000 visitors and you still only convert 2%, that's useless. But if you can go from 2 to 4% and the next week go to 10,000 visitors, well, now you've like, not only has your traffic scaled up, but you're doing twice as well from every visitor, which I've learned painfully the hard way. When my article got 50,000 visitors in 2 weeks, at one point I didn't even have lead capture on there. I didn't even go to publish the article. I shared it with a friend. He published it to Inbound. And when I woke up, it was just like the website had broken from the amount of traffic that was coming through, and I hadn't converted anyone. I was just like, create a lead magnet quickly, you know? And even then, 300 client requests at $10,000 each. Yeah.
Brilliant. Yeah. So it was a bad mistake, but one that was still profitable.
Those ones are what you learn from best, right?
Yes, absolutely. All right. So we got to, I don't want to take too much of your time. You've shared a ton of gold on here. Now, I would be remiss to skip a conversation around case studies. So you have mentioned it a couple of times now. So can you take us through just even that I know Convert.com have a bunch of case studies on the site. I saw those. Can you just take us through, I guess, how case studies are being used in its marketing across all stages of the funnel? Because typically when we think of case studies, we're thinking of that's the conversion point. We're thinking of when someone is researching and ready to buy. But I understand that you're doing it not just there. You're also using it in different places. Can you tell us about that?
I do it slightly different on my blog compared to Convert. And again, you have to test to see what works for you, different industries and things like that. In Convert, we use case studies mainly for bottom of funnel. And we actually do them by working with certified partners and agencies who are working with clients and are using Convert as an A/B testing tool. And they're getting these results for them. And then we speak to these people and we create a narrative around it. What was the problem? What was the inciting incident? What is the results? And then how it worked. Ideally, a case study should always have some kind of transformation as well, where you're showing the things that you worked on at the time, because that creates a narrative structure and it makes the person in the case study the hero instead of you, because no one cares about you. They care about themselves and they want to see that person in that case study so that they can resonate and go, that person's just like me. They have the same problems I have and they got the results that I want. And I can see everything that they did wrong. So at Convert, we do them mainly bottom of funnel, and we also use them as quotes and examples in articles, which is always really good because then we can say, MintMind's got this result for their client, and we can use it to structure and build social proof in as well. For me at AMP, I do case studies a little bit different in that I almost blend them with how-to guides. So for the article that did really well, and I kind of follow this structure anyway, is I talk about the person and the problem that they have and how they felt before, because that's going to resonate with my audience. I talk about the results that they got. I get past any common objections of like, oh, I'm too scared to run Facebook ads or whatever, if that was what the case study was about. But I don't talk about it myself. I say, Mike was hesitant to do it because he'd run some cash before and he hadn't seen results and blah, blah, blah. And I use his actual language and a quote and stuff like that from them. Then I actually turn it into a how-to guide. The reason being, I can actually rank that piece of content as a top of funnel piece where someone is searching for a solution. The reason being, for a service provider or a product provider like digital training and stuff, it works really well because I'm giving away 99% upfront, and you can see it and say, that's amazing. I either want to read this article and do it myself, or I want to do it myself, but I want more information. So having videos and templates and stuff, that would be really helpful. Or That looks great. I can see everything they've done. I don't want to do it myself. How do I hire them? And that's why I got so many client requests, because they could see exactly what they were going to get in that. And that same article still ranks for those keywords and gets organic traffic and converts them into customers. So it's like a blend between the two. And then that way I can be more top of funnel and appeal to people who are just coming in, who are looking for like answers or solutions or inspiration or insights. But yeah, that's how it differs slightly. You do have to test it for different audiences, but it is vital that you create some kind of narrative. It can't be about my company did this and we got 12% increase and blah, blah, blah. And it's 2 paragraphs. That is you telling people how awesome you are and saying that you don't care and you don't listen to them. You know, that's not going to work. If you make it all about someone else and make them the hero and help the audience resonate, they are really going to connect and share. And you can see this in, for the life of me, I can't remember a guy's name now, John something, and he is a fantastic writer. He's in a wheelchair. I don't want to define him as that, but I'm trying to think of who he is. He worked on, I think, Copyblogger and stuff years and years and years ago. But he wrote case studies like that where he contains a narrative, and it gets like 47,000 shares and things like that, because it connects with the audience and they want to share it in a transformation. In paid ads, there's this thing right now called user-generated content, which is where, say you've got a skincare cream and you've got a customer who does a testimonial and they're just talking to their iPhone as if they're talking to a friend, and you see the before and after. That's almost a case study, really. They're talking about their life before, there's a transformation of before and after, and it has the language and it has the narrative of how they felt. That stuff gets shared like crazy. It costs nothing to run, because like as soon like the algorithm picks it up because of all these organic shares. It's the same thing when you're writing your content. You need to be able to connect those 2 dots together, you know?
Yeah, no, I really like the idea of combining sort of the narrative with the how-to, because I've seen the examples that you're talking about where it's literally 2 paragraphs of, you know, the problem, the solution, come buy our stuff, and they just don't resonate. Whereas I'm curious for the example you've given, how long was that article, like when you put it together?
Probably about 5,000-6,000 words.
Yeah,
for that one.
And did you write it in the third person, or from the perspective of the customer, or what was the actual perspective?
So I explained the situation. I set the problem at the start of what they're dealing with. And I explained and I introduced the person and how they felt. Ideally, case studies, sometimes they can be about you because you've got no alternative. You could, especially if you're like a marketing industry or something like that, you can say, I wrote this case study, did really, really well. This is why you should write case studies like this, you know, because you've gone through all the details. But if you did one with a client, or a better yet, a reader who read your guide and took the action on it, that will convert way better, because you're not putting yourself as the hero in that story, someone else is. In that situation, even then, because they're not really writing it, they're not normally writers and stuff, it's kind of almost like an interview at the start of, hey, do you want to do this thing? I know you have this problem. You've probably been putting it off. Let me tell you about this one person who did this and got this result. So straight away, you've got them hooked in. Then I go through introducing the person, the problem they had and how they felt, the inciting incident where they didn't want to experience life like this anymore. Something has to change. The things that they tried in the past, you know, because a lot of people will have tried things as well and have common objections. And then the results. And then the cool thing is, this works even if you've tried this, and if you tried this, and if you tried this, and it works because of these things. And better still, it only takes XYZ time. I'm removing all different objections that they could possibly have, and I'm hooking them in once, twice, 3 times. Then I get into the how-to post, which is like exactly how we did this. Mike started out and he had these things, blah, 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 as you go through. And you're turning it into a how-to post. So it's got this volume to it now, and it's a valuable asset. So people will share it and people will link to it. So now you've got social proof preempting and removing objections to a sale that's being shared and linked to, and it's ranking for content, and it's usually got a call to action in it, and it's lead capture as well. So it's all these different things are creating a benefit for people. But yeah. Oh, your mic is off. Sorry, bud.
Yeah, I was just saying, how would you recommend the actual title of the article? Because you're talking about content that typically a case study is, this is how XYZ, 10x their whatever revenue or whatever it may be, traffic. But if you're ranking for a keyword, or this is becoming more of a how-to, are you now sort of starting from the perspective of what are people searching for, and should that be the title? Like, how do you go about that one?
So what I will normally do, so the keyword will be in the URL, because that's what Google is looking for.
Yeah.
So let me share this one. So this is a case study, but it's not the best because it features me. It would be better if I had an audience member instead. All right. So this is a guide it's a case study into a how-to of how I was a guest on 60 shows in 90 days and how you can do the same for free. So I will A/B test different headlines as well to see which gets most time on page. So that's like a really big thing that you can also check. Usually it's, do you have this problem? Here's this result and a solution and how you can do it, kind of thing. Again, you can even see this in here. I talk about the problem, the solution. I talk about the narrative and the inciting incident, how I wanted to get backlinks, the results that I've got so far. So you can see the before and the after transformation, all the different shows that I got on and so on. And then I remove these objections and I get into actually how to do the thing. So this here is a pitch for the product. Before, it was right at the bottom of the page. By having it up here now, it's something like 60% more people actually see it. Yeah, so I can have it on there, and then I get into like the body content on there. But usually it is, see, the keyword is podcast guest that I'm trying to rank for. It's difficult keyword because people, when they're searching for that, are either searching how to get guests or they're searching how to be a guest. So in reality, I should probably improve the introduction to say how it would also work if you wanted to get more guests for your show, something like that. So in that way, it ties into both people so that I'm getting all that traffic. But in reality, I'm talking about the problem, the result, and what I got. So straight away, it's like there's a story there just in the title.
And how's this one been performing? When did you post this, and how's it been performing for you?
This is the thing, because I write high converting content and distribute it, this is probably a year and a half old, if not more. I think the opt-in rate on this is 17%. Fantastic. From reader to subscriber. Yeah. And then it's not huge on the back end. It's about 5% of people who then go and buy the $7 course. I'm using it more as like an offer to kind of introduce people to the membership platform that I have, as like a trial thing, so they can see the value in it, because it's like step by step, like 45 lessons of how you do this, now do this, now do this, and you follow along as you're doing it, and you're on podcast by the end. I've had audience members, customers do it, and one of them, they were on like social media today or something like that, and it was the first pitch they ever sent.
Fantastic.
Yeah,
I assume you've taken that and embedded that in the article somewhere.
It's in the sales page now, but but I should update it so that it's on there. Yeah. Where are you at, camera? The lighting is off. Yeah.
That's really cool, man. Like, I think, I mean, that's a really good example, and people can check out. I've actually read that before, so that's really cool.
There you go, right?
Yeah. When I was searching for how to become a podcast guest, that's how I came upon that. And you also mentioned, I know you're like the king of distribution. So when you did that initial case study that, got you all the traffic, you mentioned, I think it was, did your mate post it on a site, or you put it on, was it Growthhackers or somewhere?
It was put on Inbound. So
Inbound,
I don't really, I don't really tell people this because it sounds kind of sneaky, but when you want to grow on any channel, it's so hard to do it on your own. And the reality is it's much harder to grow when you share audiences or leverage audiences of other people who've already got an audience. It's the fastest way to grow. Paid traffic is just buying the audience of someone else. It's buying Facebook's audience. It's buying YouTube's audience, stuff like that. So I had built a relationship with this person on purpose because I liked their content and I interact with them on the forum and things like this, but they also had a lot more clout there than I did. If I was to share that article myself, probably wouldn't have done nearly as well. But this person who's an authority in the space shared it because they loved it. And when I woke up, because of like the 12-hour time difference, it was just insane, like how much it had blown up and all the emails and notifications and things like that at the time. So there's different distribution methods and traffic methods. You've got like organic, Google, word of mouth, social, paid social, things like this. But there's also working and interacting with influencers and getting them to make your content succeed, either by getting them invested in the content and wanting to see it work and basically wanting to add to it and put quotes in it and stuff, or it's called the IKEA effect, where if you work on something, you value it far more. So this bookshelf looks good. It's awful. It's like $200 and things, but it's awful. I've even had to like screw extra pieces of wood in the back, things like that. This table is probably like $1,000 or whatever, and it comes up and down by just pressing buttons and things like that. If I was to move house and had to sell everything, I would probably sell this at half price and that for about 20% off. The reason being, there's an emotional investment into this thing effort I had to put in. And it's why they call the IKEA effect, like the things that you have to build in some way or whatever, or connect with, you value more. If you can get influencers to feel that about your content, they're much more likely to share it and want it to succeed than they are to if you just went and say, hey, I featured you in this, blah, blah, blah. It takes longer. It's more effort, but you're building those relationships and getting it to work, and like you're leveraging it far more. This is a big issue that most people have, is distribution is seen as something to tick off, and they just do it and that's it. And then they're on to the next thing. But in reality, like imagine if the Avengers came out and they only did one advert and it was in LA and nothing else. In LA, it might have done really well. But the reality is they can keep promoting that and keep pushing it and keep going and keep growing and things. So you can create this snowball effect, this virality where you've got so many people talking about it, but now it starts to talk and grow on its own.
Yeah.
A lot of people miss that.
No,
I'm a massive nerd for this stuff.
I love it. You got to do more Avengers stuff. Just beware of the copyright with Marvel. But I agree. It's to me, I don't see it as being tricky. I think it's that relationship building part is often skipped over. It's really, and that's why I say, like, for me, I advocate building those relationships long before you're going to make the ask to share the content. And also co-trading with the influencer, if that's what you're doing, and have them involved in the project, and not just at the end when you're like, well, I've just published this thing and I've mentioned you, and do you want to tweet it out? And the thing that annoys me the most is I'm getting these, on a weekly, I'm sure you get these weekly outreach emails, and they're like, hey, we've just done this cool guide on XYZ, and do you want to link to it on your blog? And I'm saying, you haven't asked me anything about me, right?
No, and it's nothing to do with what I do. My audience couldn't care less about it. Even if they do, and it is relevant, it's effort for me to go look at that and link to it. Everything, all outreach, all connections should be about, all sales is about the other person and how you can make it as easy as possible for them and understand them. Because if you can do that, so for example, with podcasting, I used it as a link building technique. One of the main things I will do right now, I am recording this podcast. I have made a note on a piece of paper of every asset we've talked about. So at the end of the call, I will edit out this video, save it as a backup, send it to you, send you links to all the assets and things like that. So when it comes for you to put the podcast together, are you going to do the one that you recorded this morning that has a bunch of stuff and there's all this effort that you've got to go through? Or are you going to push this one live that's already done and all the stuff is there? Because of that, you'll go with this one. But I'm also more likely to get backlinks to like specific articles because I made your job easier, your life easier, stuff like that. It's 100%. Not sneaky. It's about making your life easier. And I actually benefit from it because of that. So many people do podcasts without a call to action. So many people have blog posts with nothing to do. The traffic comes in, they read it, and then they go, oh, okay. Or they talk about the next topic, the next conversation that they logically have, and they don't have an asset for it, and then they go to the competitor. So you've warmed them up, made them want to buy a thing, and then they go, oh, I just need to understand this thing, and they go over here, and they're like, buy it on there. You know, it blows my mind.
It's a little additional effort that you put in that the other people don't do. You know, and like you say, you make the other person's life simpler, save them some time, save them some effort, and that's the 80-20 rule. That's the 20% difference. That's going to get you your backlinks, get you your authority, all the things that you want. I love that. Love it. All right, we're going to wrap up, Daniel. I know we're a bit over time, and I appreciate you and your cat joining us.
Right.
What's one book, podcast, or resource that you would say is essential for every marketer's toolkit?
Ooh, for every marketer. I would probably say Ogilvy on advertising. Or
the legendary one. Yeah,
or My Life in Advertising, actually. So this one is by Claude Hopkins. You can get a PDF version of this for free. Or sorry, not My Life, Scientific Advertising, because it talks about a lot of the topics that we've talked about here today and fully understanding your audience in a way from data. From a CRO perspective, the biggest companies in the world are data-driven, which means none of the choices that they make are opinion-based. They're all data. How Uber works with its drivers, how they distribute everything, all works off data points and all stuff like that, instead of what's might seem obvious, but actually isn't. So understanding the audience and everything that they want is huge. So Scientific Advertising, go buy that. I mean, if you've got $2 more, buy mine.
Love it. We'll definitely link to these resources. And a final question for you is, what's one project that you're really proud of or you're excited about right now?
Oof. I'm really trying hard not to like get straight into YouTube. I've bought a fancy like Canon M200 mirrorless. Wow. I've got all these lights set up. So I have one here just right now. So I've done so much work on it and things like that, because traffic wise on YouTube is absolutely massive and it's wide open for certain topics. I'm really excited for that. I'm not doing it until I've hit a different goal. I literally write out my projects. Right. I have them here so this doesn't fall out. And it's literally do this one first, then do this, then do this, then do this. And there's a reason behind all of it. I'm super analytical and things like that. But the YouTube stuff, I'm so excited. I've bought books on the topic and I'm trying not to read them. I keep seeing them on my Kindle. I'm like, no, because if I do that, I won't get the blog post finished and things. But yeah, YouTube, super excited for it.
Okay, well, we're going to have to bring you back maybe in 6 months' time when you've perhaps gone somewhere with your YouTube.
Right. I've started running paid ads on there, which are doing really well. But organic YouTube is something that I want to get into.
Yeah, well, I've got a contact which I'll connect you with, who's a gun in the YouTube world, and you might already know him. But yeah, definitely, if there's anything you need help with in that world when you're ready to do it, let me know. All right, I want to say thanks, Daniel Danes-Hutt from Convertcom and ampmycontent.com. Go check out his stuff, and certainly it's been a valuable, insightful conversation. Appreciate you, mate, and enjoy the rest of your time over there in New Zealand.
See you later, buddy. Thank you.
Yes. And for everyone listening and tuning in, we've got, in our next episode, we've got Amanda from SparkToro. So if you've never heard of SparkToro, you might have heard of Rand Fishkin, and he's giving us Amanda for an hour to talk about all the cool things they're doing with audience research. And they're
a really cool company.
Yeah,
nice people as well. You've got Taki as well, right?
I've got Taki on next Thursday. So I've got.
I bumped into him outside my office one day.
Oh,
so like, I follow Taki because of James Schramko and people like that, because they used to do a podcast together.
Yeah.
And I see Taki on Instagram, and I'm eating some sushi, and it's like this background behind him, and I'm like, where do I know that from? And it's literally he was outside the sushi shop 2 doors down from me. So like he's doing a live video, and I come out of the office and I look, and he's just stood there with like the backdrop of the sushi shop talking, and I was just like, what? Apparently his wife is from this town, same town. So like we're here visiting family.
Yeah. That's amazing. Well, I hope you had a chat with him. Well,
yeah, I did. Yeah, we went for coffee on the beach. It was a good laugh.
Brilliant. All right. Well, we'll tune into that. And yes, we've got Taki coming up. I've been working with him for a while, so looking forward to that. All right. Thanks, everyone. Enjoy your afternoon, evenings, wherever you're tuning in. If you're watching the replay, hit replay, and we'll get the links to you so you can check out Daniel's stuff as well. Thanks, everybody. Ciao.
Thank you.